Big 12 Conference. Don't give up. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. We break down the game we all love each and every day with you. Best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football because of your contribution. So thank you so much for that. Please hit the like button. Even if you don't agree with my opinion, if you enjoy the content and the discussion, debate, and analysis, please hit that like button and subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football. We go live constantly, so you got to subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. While the SEC and the Big Ten counterpunch back and forth, grabbing up the biggest names in college football, what about the Big 12? Should the Big 12 just stand pat and hope for the best? No. Big 12, move, and move now. The SEC is adding based on football brand, based on competition on the field, getting the best football teams on the field. Oklahoma, Texas, obviously the brand names are huge, and everything that Oklahoma and Texas bring to the table reeks SEC power. The Big Ten ads are a little bit more complicated. Sure, they have a lot to do with football and money, of course, but also the academic reputation, whether they meet the Big Ten standard, and also the Big Ten looking at market size. Just a decade ago or less, the Big Ten added Maryland and Rutgers, not because they were going to bring any football competition to the field that would upgrade the Big Ten in regards to its ability to compete with the SEC, but of course, the Washington, D.C., New York City, and Baltimore markets came with Maryland and Rutgers. Well, cable TV is not what it was 10 years ago, but still, it needs to be taken into consideration in regards to the people that these conferences can reach. So the Big 12 is not at the place that the Big 10 or the SEC is, in which it can choose just about, maybe not Notre Dame, but just about anybody in college football, and those programs will run to the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big 12, though, needs to act aggressively and also not be quite as selective, but still, of course, take into consideration the value of these programs and act now. So if I'm the Big 12, I go to the two schools that have apparently, reportedly, applied for membership to the Big Ten. Why? Well, Oregon and Washington want to play in the Big Ten. So why would the Big 12 go after them? Appeal to their pride, appeal to their desire to be wanted. We experienced in the Big 12, Nebraska fleeing the Big 12 because they saw the favoritism given to Texas and felt themselves to be just as high in the hierarchy of college football as Texas, and didn't appreciate the way Texas was given favoritism in the Big 12. Well, similarly, the Big 12 or the Big 10 has told Washington and Oregon, hang on. We are waiting on Notre Dame. We're dealing with Notre Dame right now. Hang on. We will get to you a little bit later. Well, the Big 12 can take advantage of this, possibly. They can say, why would you want to go to the Big 10 and be a second-class citizen? They're already favoring Notre Dame. They're going to favor every other long-standing member in the Big 10, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State on down the line, over you. You're going to be a second-class citizen in the Big 10. Come to the Big 12. We will treat you like kings. So appeal to the pride of the Oregon football program and Washington, two of the top 15 to 20 programs in the country. What does Oregon bring to the table? Check out our latest video in which we compared the various Pac-12 candidates for Big Ten membership. Oregon attracted the most TV viewers of any team in the Pac-12 this past season at 33 million. They're the best football team. Right now, the roster is the best, arguably, along with USC, of course, in the Pac-12. And it's been the best team in recent years and over the past decade or so, advancing to 2 national championship games. Also, arguably, the best brand. USC has the enormous history, and USC's fate is already sealed going to the Big Ten. So we're talking about the contenders for the Big 12 right now. Oregon is the number 1 contender. The number 1 should be target of the Big 12. Go after Oregon. And, of course, that Portland market is not bad as well at the number 21 position in regards to TV ratings and markets. Team number 2 should be the Washington Huskies. Up until the last few seasons, basically Washington on par with Oregon as a football power on the field, a top 15 to 20 team. Had really good years, of course, under Don James, and most recently under Chris Peterson. This has been a Pac-12 power going way back to the late 70s. So Washington, arguably the best football brand in terms of talent, team, roster on the field over a long duration of time, looking at the last 15, 20, 30, 40 years. So Washington would be my number 2 target in that Seattle TV market. Although it's an NFL market, yes, Washington, my number 2 target if I'm the Big 12. All right, the Big 12 then, and I'm going to roll out the red carpet for those two again, and I would take either one, even if the other one does not come as a pair. But those are my first 2 targets. Oregon, Washington. All right, number 3, Utah, I would take as well as a single team. Utah's playing as good a football in recent years as Oregon and Washington. They have gone to 3 Pac-12 championship games recently. We just saw them almost win the Rose Bowl. Of course, it's a tremendous football team, roster, personnel being run very well, and have all the way back before their Pac-12 days. In terms of a TV market or TV draw, Utah drew 12 million fans to its games along with Washington this past season. Check out my previous video. Again, I run down the numbers of viewers that watched these particular teams during the 21 season. Utah, Salt Lake City, there's no NFL team to compete with. The Salt Lake City market is number 30 in the nation. All right, Utah would be next. All right, after those 3, I would want a pairing of at least 2 of these at the same time, meaning they come as pairs. Along with Utah, I would want Colorado. Colorado, of course, a member of the Big 12 until they left, along with Nebraska in 2011. Colorado's been a bad football program for a long time. Basically, aside from 2016 when they eked out a division championship with smoke and mirrors, Colorado's been awful, 57-80 since 2010. And even before that, they've not finished in the top 25 since 2003. Not made a major bowl game since 2001, winning a conference championship in the Big 12 in 2001. But Colorado is still a football brand. It's still a football power of sorts within the Power 5. And despite a dismal record, the Big 12, of course, needs to add quality and quantity. This is a quantity selection for the most part, although the Denver market, again, 16th ranked in the country, but it's an NFL market. Colorado is my 4th target if I'm the Big 12. Then I look at the 2 Arizona schools, and I would want them to, of course, come together, and they probably would come as a package deal. Arizona, Arizona State. The Wildcats are currently one of the worst teams in the Power 5. Okay, that's all well and good, and that's not a good situation right now for the Big 12, but we know that Arizona football has been capable in recent years. 64-78 since 2010, but they're under 21 games under 500 in the last few years. So they were 7 games over 500 before their recent slide under Kevin Sumlin and Jed Fish. So they can win. They went to a Pac-12 championship game in 2014, finished in the top 25. That was the last time Arizona finished in the top 25 in the nation. And before that, it was 1998. So it's not a great football program. It's typically winning 6 or 7 games at its best most of the time. That is what you're going to get with Arizona. The TV markets in Arizona, in this state, Phoenix, number 11 in the country, and then Tucson's number 64. You do have to compete with an NFL team, though, of course, in the Cardinals. And Arizona State could be argued after Oregon and probably Washington that Arizona State's been the best football team, best football program over the last 3 to 4 decades of any of these teams. They've gone to a Rose Bowl. They've gone to 2 Rose Bowls going back to 1987. And they've had some pretty good football teams, but they're under NCAA investigation right now. That's probably not going to work out too well for ASU, but that is a temporary issue. I would not make that stop me in any such way in targeting Arizona State. 83-64, 19 games over 500 since 2010, 4 seasons in the top 25, final ranking since 2000, and they went to the Pac-12 championship game in 2013. And again, those Phoenix and Tucson markets, number 11 and 64 in the nation. A couple wild cards here, probably would not go after, but there's a consideration here based on market size and based on the quality of the football program. SMU has been strong in recent years under Sonny Dykes and now Rhett Lashley. And they play in Dallas. So you could pair SMU and TCU as a rivalry within that Dallas-Fort Worth area. SMU a consideration possibly for the Big 12. And then also you got to consider what? Fresno State? If the Pac-12 continues to implode, becomes a minor football conference, becomes another American conference, let's say, because they can't hang on to their Power 5 type status, and Stanford stays in the Pac-12 because of the Olympic sports and the academics, well, you got to think that Fresno State would be a good target because the value of Stanford and Cal would plummet. Fresno State would grab another pretty major TV market in Northern California for the Big 12. And also under consideration would be a team that competes very well against Pac-12 teams, and that's San Diego State, and another major TV market. So considerations for the Big 12. I start with Oregon, then Washington, then Utah. If I get Colorado, I really want somebody else with them, namely Utah, Colorado. They're kind of a pair to a certain extent. Certainly Arizona, Arizona State, I would want those two at the same time. And then give consideration, if this continues to be a grab between the SEC and the Big 10, and we're talking 20 and 22 and 24 teams, a conference, that for the Big 12 to hang in there, they are not going to keep up with the Big 10 and the SEC. There is no way they can make up that kind of ground. They don't have that kind of pull to bring in those kind of elite programs, and they're way behind right now. But what they can do is stay on the map and stay relevant. They can be the third conference. If the ACC gets picked away and destroyed and the Pac-12 continues its slide and is dismissed, the Big 12 can at least be the third conference of a Power 3 possibly. And if we advance to a 12-team playoff, most of those teams are going to be from the SEC and the Big 10. But at least the Big 12 champion can be legit and make that playoff. And maybe they get a second-place team in a 12-team playoff, and the other 10 spots are split between the SEC and the Big 10. Those are my thoughts about the Big 12. Act now. Keep in mind that last year at this time, I was suggesting after Oklahoma and Texas fled to the SEC that the Big 12 go after Houston, UCF, BYU, and Cincinnati. Good job, Big 12. You stayed alive. You grabbed the 4 best programs you could possibly get at that point. Now go after the best programs you can possibly get away from a sinking Pac-12. Do it now. Do it boldly. Oregon, Washington, of course, appeal to the pride first and foremost. Second-class citizen in the Big 10, come our way. We will treat you like gold. Big 12 survival right here at the Voice of College Football. See you next time.